Divine Proclamations with Yanks, Goose, and TLP.
All right, we're here live with an interview with Dogman, coach of BDE. Dogman is the reigning defending coach of the championship team BDE from spring 2022 Titan Esports split. Dog, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and how me and you have met in the years past.
Oh, yeah, there's a story. So, what's up? I'm Dogman. So, among many things, I am the coach of BDE from last split into this split. Also the mid laner for Conqueror League, EDE. So, don't forget about all that. Undefeated, by the way. Anyways, yeah, so, obviously I've known you and ISO, the top laner for BDE, for quite a long time, probably over 2 years now. So, we met, I think, for like Clash, just like online on a Reddit post or whatever, and we met from there, played together for a while.
What was the team name? Don't let the listeners out on the team name for sure.
Hey, I was gonna get there, but yeah, we created the Furious Five, as we were once dubbed. Played together for probably like a year, I would say, somewhere around there together, and then we kind of split ways for a bit there, and you and ISO stuck together, and continued to find more people to play with until eventually finding people like Trisco and Goose and among others, and Wiley, who's our jungler now, who's your support. Crazy stories, crazy times. Anyways,
I want to go into the undefeated conqueror. Like that is, I mean, you guys have two teams right now, both in Divinity and Conqueror, that are undefeated. I want to know who is molding this organization right now. Who's got their hand on everything, or is it something where both are just completely separated? Tell me what's going on in the inner workings of BDE EDE right now.
Yeah, so I'd say overall I don't know, maybe the DE brand is kind of run over by ISO. I'd say he's the maybe head honcho, so to say, in the sense of player moves and things like that. So I think when the Plat team came together and EDE came together, it was kind of left to us. He had basically just said, I'm thinking about starting a Plat team, and you fit the bill. I know you have another member of the Furious Five, Chase, our support. He was obviously on my list of people I wanted to bring in. So we just kind of started ground up in that sense. So for the Conqueror team, it was kind of Wiley as the jungle, as ISO kind of said, hey, here's a pick for you, a jungler for you, and obviously we love Wiley having him there. And then I kind of brought in me and Chase. Chase brought in a friend of his, Timmy, the ADC, and then lastly, maybe a week before the season started, we found Scooter, our esteemed top laner. So the Plat team kind of together between us four, and then in terms of BDE, my role as coach is more outside of the realm of player decisions and things like that, and it's more of just you know, what players are here and what can we do with them. So that's kind of my role there.
That's exactly what I wanted to lead into, actually. We've have a new roster, a new lineup. I mean, BDE 1.0 is totally different from the BDE 2.0 that we just saw in, week 4. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your team? Just like a quick, rundown, like who's on it, who's off it, what's going on. Just real quick. Starting in the top lane, why don't we start up there because we all know and love who's up there.
Oh yeah, so ISO's our rock. He's the top laner for years to come, right? So we have ISO up in the top lane, and I assume you kind of just want me to roll down the list. So, um, you know,
Well, I
form
don't want you to. I don't want you to skirt. It's not just ISO, the rock in the top lane. We're talking about the reigning top MVP from last spit,
that.
arguably who beat out TLP, the second best, and then brought him onto the organization. So it's not just the rock up there; it's the reigning, defending top lane MVP. I want you to tell me about ISODAC.
Yeah, well, I think when you bring up a good point, and I guess I kind of neglected to say that not only do we have the best top laner in the league, we have the second best top laner down at support. So, um, that is an interesting dynamic. But yeah, ISO obviously all star last split, champion last split. GM of both teams. So
Are we expecting to see the same type of level of play from ISO, or is something going to be changing with the new people coming in? Are we going to see ISO on the same champions? Are we going to see him facilitating a different role? I know we love ISO on Ornn. We've seen him on Camille. We've just seen him on Tryndamere this past week. What type of role is ISO fulfilling in this team with the new lineup?
yeah, I think obviously as the team transforms and different people are playing different weeks, and it kind of changes the dynamic of the team overall. You can't have just Ornn up top every single game if that's not what the team dictates. That's not what the team needs, right? So
No, of course you can put him in the bot lane too, right?
well, I'm always one for diversity of picks and players. So anything could happen, right? But I think I let's just put it this way: I've seen ISO support before, so who knows what could come in the future. I mean, we have TLP down support. Who knows what could happen?
Fair enough. Next, I want to go into Killbot in the jungle. I know this man. Obviously, we're being on Team BDE, but a lot of people don't know him. And when I brought it up to the power rankings committee, I would say, and I'm going to do quote unquote committee because it's 3, 4 of us talking about the power rankings each week and putting our consensus together. They didn't know about this man and his, Talia one trick, I would say, and with the I want to say million mastery on this champion. But I want to specifically talk about, without a doubt in my mind, comparing him to your last jungler, he has a much larger champion pool and the diversity is much different. And I know this to be for a fact because guess what? I know who the jungler was previously. How does this change drafts for you?
Yeah, obviously I mean, you would know it best, right? The jungle pool is definitely different from spoiler alert, guys. Yanks 501 as our previous jungler to Killbot here, who we have now. So the Talia, the Warwick, these are things that you're not going to see. But I think that that you're not going to see from Yanks, but you do see from Killbot, obviously, and I think Killbot kind of has some similar picks in terms of the ball bear and things like that. He can play some meta mainstays, and obviously there are nerfs and buffs coming in every 2 weeks unless Riot decides to take a break. So he's definitely available and ready to take on different champions. So I do like Killbot, and I think that one thing that Killbot really does bring to the table, which I really enjoy, is he's a voice in draft, and he's not a voice that's afraid to speak up, and I like that. That's one thing is I like to be the coach and not the dictator, right? So if push comes to shove in draft, I'm not necessarily the
You're letting
and
people take some comfort picks rather than something you might think would be better there. Is that what I'm gathering?
yeah, I mean it kind of depends on the situation. Right now we're I don't want to say cruising based on how we've been playing in some of the games, but we're playing it out through the regular season, and we're definitely here. We're a new team, you could almost say, and so obviously there's room for new picks, and just finding out what the team likes to play, and what the team is open to playing. So sometimes those can be different things, and I think sometimes maybe not even sometimes, maybe more often than not, the players have different ideas of what's good than versus what I have an idea of what's good
Right.
in a
I just
draft.
want to I just want to make sure you bookmark that because we're going to be following up there with who's calling, who's talking, because we're going to talk about that and also talk about that game we just saw this past week. So don't lose that train of thought. Next, I want to get into something spicy here, and this is the mid lane. Arguably, and I mean arguably, like there's not a lot of people that's going to argue this. You had or have, I want you to tell me what's going on, the league MVP, I would say, in Trisco. But now that we've looked at the roster changes, we see Trisco as sub mid lane. We saw a new starting mid lane in Nabra. What happened? What caused this? What's going on? Is Trisco just toxic? Did he get banned? Did he get a job? Like what happened where you now have Nabra and no flame to him. He did pretty well on the Lux. We saw a pretty like decent game from him, but he was no Trisco, and we noticed. What happened? What's going on?
you know, uh, I'll never flame Trisco. He's the goat of Divinity. I'll just say it doesn't matter what position you want to throw out there, what player you want to throw out there. He's the greatest player to ever live in Divinity. um, but if you go ahead and look at the SEM stat sheet, I think one thing that is pretty apparent just from the opening day roster was we're not talent's a good thing to have, right? We're not afraid to just have two top laners that are number one and number two in Divinity, and just put one in support. And I think with Nabra, he's at least after that performance, in those three games just yesterday, um, he is ranked 7 overall, and Trisco's ranked 5 overall. So I think that we just have two goated mid laners along with two goated top laners. So I think that you can never have enough talent on a team. I think ISO, I don't know if he's paying people under the table or what's going on, but somehow he just keeps managing to bring in, great people. And I think by no means are we done seeing Trisco under the BDE logo. So,
All right. Now another, like I would say, semi-controversial, what's going on? We've had the permanent roster changes in your jungle. We've had some roster changes with support from last split, bringing in TLP. We've got the roster changes with Trisco now on the bench and now brought in. What's going on with your ADC position? Because now that Goose has taken more of an analyst desk role, he's on, on the content creation team. It looks like almost like you guys have a rotating bot lane ADC. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Steve Barron. I love Eden Major, but we're seeing one every other week. Is this how it's going to go? Is this just happen to be who's up available for scrims? Both are great. We love seeing them, but they do bring different stuff to to your table.
yeah, I think both of them are obviously good ADCs for us. I think we've had success with both of them playing. I think it just kind of comes back to having talent. I mean, we saw what Major can do in the finals from last split, right? I mean, he couldn't do quite enough, so he had to come and join us. But um, but him and TLP, they had to come over join the dark side, right? But we love playing with Major, and I think Steve Dreadbaron, he's just as good. I think they're both quality ADCs for us to have, and I don't think people can really know what to expect with both of them down at ADC. So
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got to be hard for you to prep unless you know what's going on, in advance, who's showing up for what, unless it's a calculated decision. But what I really want to know is who's arguably better in the role. Is it, Dread Baron, or is it Eden Major? Who's better in your opinion?
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you could point to about who's better in the same position, same role, but I think the important thing really to focus on is that we're playing well with both of them in there. So I wouldn't necessarily point fingers at who's better, and
All right. I'll take the political route on that one. I'll accept it. That's fine. I don't want to throw you under the bus with your team. That's all right. All right. We've talked about him enough. We've talked about him when he was top lane. We've talked about him when we stole Eden. Let's talk about TLP. He's a good support. He's not the greatest. We'll give you that one. His Alistair game on point. But the question I have is, can he play an enchanter? Does he bring that to the table, or is it something you guys know you can't draft with?
No, I think to be honest, we're still kind of figuring out, what everyone's pools are. So, I think even in the series against, PS, just yesterday, we brought out the Karma, in the second game, and I mean, that is the game that we lost, but I don't think that necessarily, automatically means that, oh, he can't play enchanters. I think it just kind of comes down to comfort. He's a tried and true top laner. He's got the top laner mentality. There are things that he's got to learn specifically about the role and about support, and what kind of your champion is looking to do versus what a top lane champion is looking to do. But I think he's putting in a lot of work on a lot of different champions to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. And I think the important thing to focus on is throughout scrims and throughout even these regular season matches, he's not just a one-trick pony. He's bringing out picks that other people aren't bringing out, like the orange support.
We love seeing the orange support for sure.
A tried and true BD classic, right? And he's bringing out the Alistar. He's also got some Thresh game under his belt. He's got some Enchanter games under his belt. And then in scrims, we're running all sorts of different things. So, I think the ability to come from top lane and transition quickly and not instantly be the best, and that's not what we would expect from anybody switching to any new position. But top lane to support, they aren't exactly the same role.
Absolutely not. They're different mentality, and we understand that.
Yeah, I think just to kind of cap it on that, I think the important thing is that not only has he been putting in the effort on new supports, but both of the guys down at ADC, Dread Baron and Major, are both open and willing to try out new supports and try out new ADC combos, and just kind of see what works and what doesn't. So we're just busting out everything down there.
Absolutely. Now that we've gone through every position, I want to know in these games who's calling the shots, who's the voice. I want to know because in the past, from personal experience, we knew that Wiley was a big voice, Goose was a big voice, Yanks was a big voice. Obviously, I can be there. I know who's talking now. Is ISO calling the shots? Is Killbot? Trisco was always more of the quiet side. Is now brought more of the talkative. Steve Barron, Dread Baron, excuse me. Is he calling it? What's going on in comms in games?
Yeah, I think so. We can just start with you. I'll just throw a little flame towards you and say that you probably talked more in this interview than you have in any series. I'm just playing, but Yeah, no, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with who the previous shot callers of BD are with Goose, Wiley, and you. So, with those three, out of the equation, it is a good question to ask. Who is really picking up the slack there, and I think you know with kind of different players. Trisco played last week, Nalra played this week. Killbot's been in there for 2 weeks now, and TLP's been in there the whole season. But ADC's kind of been here and there. As to who's played each week, it's kind of an interesting dynamic within the team. But I think everybody's kind of understood that at this point. Everybody that played on the roster yesterday has played enough together as five to kind of figure out, who's not going to be the one that talks and who's going to be the ones that talk. And I think that just kind of comes naturally. I think in terms of yesterday's 5-man roster and who we had out there, I think Killbot's always a vocal person, as I kind of mentioned earlier. He's always open to talking and making calls and reading plays and trying to make plays both early and late. And then I think as of yesterday's roster, Dread Baron is a pretty big voice for us, but I think Major kind of fills in those shoes too when he's in there, and so it's kind of a jungle ADC dynamic.
Always the jungle. We never get enough credit in the jungle.
Yeah, jungle never gets enough credit, but yeah, I mean they're talking. We all know they're there. We just don't like to talk about them, right? So
Let's talk about, we've referenced it a couple of times, this interview. Let's talk about the I'm gonna put it quote unquote win yesterday. You beat Pepe Soldiers 2-1. You beat them game 1, you lost game 2, and then you scrapped it out game 3. You dropped a game to the bottom team in the league. Now, is this considered a win or is it considered a loss? Like, what are we? You should have steamrolled, is my opinion. BDE reigning defending. You guys were undefeated, still undefeated. I mean, I'm not going to take that away from you, but is this considered a win or a loss for Dogman and BDE?
Yeah, I think as BDE as a whole, I think at this point in the roster, it's not like these guys have been playing together for weeks and weeks and weeks, and so honestly, I think any experience is good experience at this point. It's not like we're in the grand finals playing for our lives and we're barely scraping by. Which at that point, I would hope that we're more than scraping by to the team that we had just kind of played. I think it's pretty clear to everybody, and I think that's the important thing, that everybody's kind of on the same boat, that the way that they played, a win's a win, right? But against maybe better competition, a stronger team that's really really pushing for that number one spot, against us, those 1 and 3 games, might have been rougher, and maybe that game 2 really matters more. I think, in a sense, I'd never say that winning a series 2-1 is necessarily a loss, just because, you can, just like you can learn from a win, you can also learn from a loss. And I think sometimes there's more to learn with a newer team with a loss than there is with a win. So yeah, I think overall I would just say that it's a win in a lot of ways.
Gotcha. I mean, that definitely makes sense. I mean, once you put it in the perspective, like you have a brand new team, not, I shouldn't say brand new team. You've got new pieces to the team. You're gaining the valuable experience, leveling up. We're all Pokemon in this journey, right? So, so yeah, I'll give you that one. I think I might have misspoke. It definitely isn't a loss, but we in the community thought it was definitely going to be a steamroll, and especially on the power rankings desk, it was a 2-0 across the board for all of us. So I think I was just highly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 final questions here, and then we're going to wrap this up. The second last question I have for you is right now, BDE 2.2, whatever you want to call it. You have ISO, Killbot, Nabra, Eden Steve, Dread, whichever one you want to put, and TLP. Who's the strongest piece of the puzzle? Who's the shining piece right now? Would you say is your MVP of BDE?
I think honestly that's a tough question to answer. I think with this literally being the first time in a Titan week, an official match where these five are playing together as five, I you can maybe come to a conclusion of who's the MVP of the series. I don't know about an MVP of the team as a whole because to be honest at this point, we don't really know what these five have together as a team. I can sure point to ISO as I know what ISO is and the champions that he plays and what he brings to the table over knowing him for 2 years. But can I say the same for everybody else? So I think it's kind of in a sense unfair to put any kind of pressure or expectations on players who played together for the first time as five in an official match just yesterday. So I'll give you a political answer for that one too.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Final question. I just want to know your thoughts moving forward with this team, the roster that you have, potential changes, whether or not you think Trisco might come back. What is a realistic goal? Are we looking at a dynasty? Are we looking at the Patriots? Is it going to be something where you guys plan on winning a couple of splits? Or is it something where right now with the new roster, we're okay with, quote unquote, making it to Worlds and seeing how we perform there, aka finals, making a finals run. If you win or lose, maybe losing because of the instability or something like that. What is the end goal? What is the okay achievement? What are you guys setting your sights on?
Yeah, I think we're definitely not looking to TSM 06 at Worlds, so that's not the plan. I don't think the plan is ever to settle for getting there. I think the plan is to win it all. I think the expectation is to win it all. It's a long time before we get to that finals match, right? So, we can talk about the inconsistencies roster wise and play wise right now, but I don't think that those inconsistencies will be the same come finals. So, I fully expect. I know what we're able to get to. I know what other teams are more or less capable of in terms of challenging us, and I think that the expectation is always going to be win finals, and that's period end of story. I think obviously I wouldn't be hurt at all or upset at all if something tragic happens come playoffs, but that's not something that I really think about besides you asking that question. I think without a doubt this team can win it all no matter what mix and match five you have out there. So
I'm not gonna lie to you. Knowing you for as long as I did, I would expect nothing less from you. So I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you didn't sugarcoat it. Because if you would have gave me anything else, I would have called you out for it.
yeah,
With
and you know what?
that,
I'll
go
give
ahead.
you
Go ahead.
yeah, I'll give you one more exclusive scoop. I'm gonna go ahead and call out my team in EDE and say that it's a 2-man race, and I think we're ahead of the bunch. So
Oh, okay. With that though, we're gonna wrap up this interview. I've got Dogman here, the coach of BDE. We just spent some quality time with him. There's some solid answers to to the questions we had as a community. I appreciate your time, Dogman. Do you have anything to shout out real quick?
yeah, I mean, shout out BDE, shout out Goose, shout out you Yanks, shout out EDE, and shout out all the dog fans out there.
Fair enough. If you're listening to this, though, we've got a scheduled interview with Solace, the top laner of Dorado Chi Gaming. We just saw them beat up on the Crab Wranglers this past week. that's going to be coming out this Friday, so stay tuned. And Dog, I appreciate all the time. We're out here. Thanks.
Divine Proclamations with Yanks, Goose, and TLP.